Welcome to the Fantasy 40 Podcast with your host, John Dabari.
I can beat the shit out of Hollywood Brown if you'd like.
Matt Walker.
Put the DK Metcalf at running back.
And Andrew Berg.
I love Hakeem Butler, actually. He's starting to grow on me.
Remember to like, rate, subscribe on Podbean, iTunes, Stitcher, and Spotify. Follow the guys on Twitter at the Fantasy 40. Enjoy the show.
Welcome to the Fantasy 40 Podcast. We are back. Myself, Andrew Burke, John Dabari, and Matt Walker. It's been quite some time. Been busy, just getting ready to get this season started. We do have John in a location to be determined. So if there's any audio issues, which I don't think there will be, but I'm just throwing it out there.
Witness protection.
Yes, he is. He's not even on the screen right now. His screen's all black. I have no idea where he is. He's like Walter White out there. But how's it going, John?
All right.
And none other than DFF Walk, dude. Were you worried when the Redskins were giving it to your Eagles?
No, it just made for a couple more beers early on a Sunday than I expected. But this is how the Eagles open things up. I was never worried they were going to lose the game, but they definitely made it interesting. So kudos to those Redskins.
I would say we'll get to it when we go to the game breakdowns. But Vernon Davis, man, that was a nice one. It's probably the nicest move I've ever seen him do. But
listen, that was Andrew Sandejo just form tackling none.
Right. But man, what an interesting week one. That's to say the least. I don't think we'll ever see the same guys in the top of the fantasy ranks that did do their jobs in week one. But there were some huge outputs. So we'll just go ahead and start with the Green Bay Chicago game on Thursday night. This was probably the most boringest game of the week. Is there anything you want to get into about this game, John?
Just Geronimo Allison laying an egg. The whole game kind of sucked, so there weren't a lot of fantasy points to go around, but I think people expected him to, catch a ball.
Yeah, I think he was the wide receiver 3, and he was on the field for, I think 30-something snaps. Walk. Is there anything you want to add with Geronimo? Because I actually rolled him out in a flex, and I didn't even want to bring it up because I haven't got a 0 in a long time.
Yeah, it's tough to swallow those goose eggs, but I'm going to hold on to Allison and see what comes with it. The whole Packers offense looked like dog shit. Rodgers didn't take a snap all preseason. It's going to take some time to get this LaFleur offense around. It was clear that MVS was their number 2, which I'm not happy about, but there's still value in keeping Allison. I'm not abandoning shit, but I'm sure as shit not starting him in week 2.
Yeah.
And hey, kudos to the NFL for making this 100-year switch to get that Packers-Bears game on Thursday night when we could have watched the Patriots just eviscerate the Steelers to open the NFL season. That would have been a lot more enjoyable.
It could have been, Bob. Let's get to Sunday's games, and the first one on the slate was the Chiefs and the Jaguars. This was kind of going back and forth for a minute, Walker. You know how we both like the Jaguars. Nick Foles did go down with a clavicle. I seen a few tweets saying this might be the year of the clavicle. None other than Gardner the Stash Minshew came in and got some stuff done. Is that somebody you're looking at in maybe a 2 QB league right now?
First off, Gardner Minshew looks like Jim Tom Sula's love child. That kid is impeccable. It's pretty spectacular. Listen, in Scott Fishbowl, sure as shit, that dude's going to be another $100 bid, just like Brissett was a week ago. But no, I'm not going to believe that he repeats his performance. I think the Chiefs defense is bad, and you kind of get those like first game flashes from a lot of these guys, and then they peter out after that. So I'm not putting any stock in what Minshew did against the Chiefs in comeback mode. But he did make some of those receivers fantasy relevant. But we're talking about the Jaguars. We're burying the Chiefs lead and wide receiver number 1.
Oh, my God.
Last week, Sammy, 9 for 193 and 3, Watkins.
Sell high.
Holy moly.
It's worth 3 first right there.
Buy high. Stop shitting on Sammy. He did some of his damage before Tyreek Hill left the game, albeit, his he exploded after Tyreek Hill had this sternoclavicular injury. He didn't break his collarbone, but he has something that needs to be immobilized for like 4 to 6 weeks. So Sammy's the wide receiver 1 in a Pat Mahomes offense. You're telling people to sell high. It's just out of sheer hatred or that Sammy has disappointed you in the past. This is all, this is fire up Sammy for as long as Tyreek Hill's out and continue to do so after Tyreek Hill even comes back. Sammy Watkins is due for a breakout season.
John, I'm not even going to comment on that. I'm act like I didn't hear it. But the other guys, like, what do you think about the running back situation in Kansas City? Did you like what you saw, or are you still kind of puzzled by what's going to go on there? Because McCoy did more with his 10 touches than Williams did.
Yeah, Williams had a 65% snap share. McCoy had 29%. So I think it's just they're slowly bringing him along. I don't think it's going to be too long before he has more snaps, touches, carries, everything than Williams. But I'm more interested in the Jacksonville running back situation. Fournette, who we know needs volume to really put some big numbers out there. 86% snap share, and they were talking about getting more involved in the passing game, and 6 targets. So I think if he stays on the field, if those wobbly feet can stay under him, he's in line for a big year, especially now that Foles is out.
Yeah, and he does look a little leaner. I wouldn't go as far to say is explosive because he wasn't breaking that many runs, but he definitely was grinding. So another thing that I wanted to mention on the Jaguars is DJ Chark. I liked it. Looked explosive, kind of a one-trick pony, but they were throwing him the ball down the field, and that's what he does. And he made some good catches. I love him in best ball. That's what I was going to get to. But
yeah, listen, this might not be the year of the deep ball, but it was definitely the week of the deep ball. I mean, you were talking about how very uncommon leaderboard for those wide receivers, and it was a lot of speed threats, and Chark being one of them. 4 for 146 and 1, and pretty sure that touchdown came from Minshew. Or was that the touchdown that?
Yep, Foles got hurt on that ball. So
on that ball, okay.
Yeah. All right, so we'll move on to the Falcons and Vikings. This was a very surprising game. The Falcons didn't put any points on the board till late in the game. John, what's your kind of takeaways fantasy-wise from this game?
Austin Hooper had 9 targets. He was one of my top tight end targets in drafts this year, and it's gonna get the volume. I think 9 targets is gonna kind of be the norm. I mean, especially games like this where they're trailing too.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, Hooper's a definite get. He has our tight end 1 upside. I think we were talking about that before the season started, that he was still being disrespected as far as his ADP was concerned. But my thing was that Kirk Cousins threw 10 passes, and the Minnesota Vikings destroyed the Atlanta Falcons. I wrote saddle up Dalvin Cook while he's healthy. I said that Dalvin Cook could be the running back 1 this year if he stays healthy, because there's nothing scaring him. I did like what Madison did, but Dalvin Cook looked amazing, and it is clear what Zimmer wants to do with that offense, and it's pound the rock and keep Kirk Cousins from throwing it 30 times a game. I mean, 10 is an outlier, but under 30 I'll take for most games on Kirk Cousins pass attempts.
Yeah, where I want to go with it is hopefully it's just rust. But when you get outrushed by Ito Smith and Matt Ryan, it's a little cause for concern. I expected big things from my boy Devonta Freeman. He had 8 carries for 19 yards. That's a measly 2.4 yards an attempt. And then he caught 3 balls but only got 12 yards. So a little cause for concern because, they were behind and he was on the field, but he still wasn't getting targeted. I think I don't have the target numbers for Julio in front of me, but
11.
11. Okay. So he was trying to pepper him, but they were going 3 and out a lot of the time. So wasn't on the field that much. Hopefully there's brighter things. I'm still not giving up the ghost. Kind of wanted your take on that, John, for Freeman.
Didn't he get hurt again? Didn't he?
That would sound about right. I didn't read that, but I think better days are ahead for Freeman. Can't do much worse. The Vikings defense is stout, but they do play the Eagles this week, and the Eagles shut down the run game against the Redskins too. So
yeah, I thought he was off the field for a little bit because him and Ito Smith and Freeman had
exact
50-50. Right? Yeah, 50-50 snap share.
Yeah, I did not see any injury reports, but John.
And this just in, Ito Smith still bad at football. How he's above Brian Hill and Quadri Allison is beyond me. I don't care that he was 6 for 31. Ito Smith's still not good at football.
Anything on the Viking side besides Dalvin Cook's the man? A little concerned. I know Diggs came in with the hamstring. He was a little iffy. Looked like Thielen started off the game, and then they really didn't need to do too much. So I mean, what did you say? 9 passes?
10 passes. Cousins was 8 of 10 for 98 yards and a touchdown. I mean, that's like Army football. They're running here.
That's like 8th grade football.
That line is insane. But now, I mean, can't trust him. I mean, Diggs, whenever he's injured, don't start him. Anyone needs to know better. That's like a fantasy rule of thumb. And he was on the injury report. No one should have started him. Can't expect 10 passes, but just know better. And Thielen lucked into a touchdown, early on. Would have been ugly for all, pass catchers in Minnesota.
Right. So that's another thing. I think, not to get off topic before we move to the next game, but geez, man, there's just tons of overreactions right now. Week 1's happening and everyone's either, should I trade, sell, hold? I think I'd like to wait till about week 3 before I start really panicking or, starting to move guys in redraft. But
I agree.
So let's move on, man. I woke up feeling dangerous. Old Baker Mayfield got spanked by Marcus Mariota and the Titans walk. Derrick Henry kind of salvaged his day with a touchdown through the air. Was it one catch he had for like 75 yards or something like that? And the guy I'm most upset about, me and John were talking about, is Corey Davis, man. I think it might be over with, and then A.J. Brown might take over the number 1 role. What do you think?
Yeah, listen, you take Derrick Henry's 75-yard touchdown away, so had 84 rushing and a touchdown. So he was still productive in this game. He just had a monster with that broken touchdown run. Look at it, just 75 straight yards running into the end zone, playing the Browns on that one. But my thing was Mariota threw 3 touchdowns and Baker threw 3 interceptions. So yeah, this is the world we're living in week 1. And then I read, and Corey Davis went 0 for 3. So I agree that it was a little concerning with Corey Davis. He did have Denzel Ward on him all game, and that's going to make anyone look bad. But A.J. Brown got a lot of pub. He was a lot of people's wide receiver 1 pre-draft. In rookie drafts, no one liked him landing with the Titans, but everyone liked the town on that kid. He might be the 1A in this wide receiver core. Maybe Corey Davis gets slotted down to that 1B or wide receiver 2 spot. It's better for him to take some pressure off because he just hasn't been consistent. He's gotten the targets in Tennessee, but hasn't had the results, and A.J. Brown looked amazing.
He did look amazing, but is it just me? But when I was watching him, he looks, first of all, gigantic, but he doesn't look as fast as he's supposed to. He was kind of lumbering around. I mean, obviously he didn't have to. He was tossing everybody who tried to tackle him on the ground. But
I heard comparisons to Des Bryant and Anquan Bolden for A.J. Brown, and I think body types and like lack of top end speed, I can buy into those. Like, he's just tossing guys aside, but he's not running away from anyone for a long touchdown.
I just wanted to, maybe I was misconstruing in the draft process because that's what I thought I was hearing. John, anything to go with your Cleveland Browns? You pretty much nailed it. You said last week that they might turn into pumpkins, and sure enough, they did. So
I think Browns going to Browns.
Yeah, he said they're going to turn into pumpkins. And last year it was what, Kareem Hunt fumbling, or that was 2 years ago on his first play, and then you called this. So good work.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't shocked to see it. But yeah, Chubb had 70% snap share, so he's going to get the volume. That bum that scored the early touchdown, which made me sick. I think he got hurt, so Chubb should probably see more than 70% this year. And yeah, going back to Corey Davis, I think that's a product of having Denzel Ward on him. I think he'll be fine going forward volume wise.
A guy that we want to talk about is Delaney Walker as well, though. Kind of saved his day as well. I picked him up in the last round of my draft, Walker.
Hey, remember Delaney Walker breakout? Yeah, I was or sleeper, whatever I called him, because he was getting disrespected in rookie or in redrafts. Like low end tight end too. He was limited snaps. He didn't play a lot of snaps from, I think it was like 25% of their snaps. But shit, when he's on the field, Mariota's looking for him. Yeah, he's fresh as a daisy to me. So
he got outsnapped by our boy Jonnu. So Jonnu Smith might become fantasy relevant as the year goes on too.
Yeah, I doubt it.
Getting more snaps.
He's getting more snaps with the murmurs from us.
Yeah, John, look up how many pass routes he ran. I don't deny he got more snaps. I guarantee he was glued to the line of scrimmage during run plays for Derrick Henry.
And then we'll go ahead and do the Battle of New York. We got those Buffalo Bills against the New York Jets. This was a back and forth defensive game. The Bills etched it out. Fantasy-wise, take me to the promised land walk because besides, I thought Smokey Brown, I don't forget who said that out of you two, but that was a bright spot.
Yeah, I mean, Jets scored the first 16 points of the game. Bills scored the last 17 points of the game. So it's a tale of two games. But my note was that Le'Veon Bell played every single snap, 72 snaps in the game, had 23 touches for 92 total yards with that touchdown and a 2-point conversion. So people worried about him getting the volume because Gase didn't want him there and all that shit. Well, that sailed. He is going to run him into the ground. They paid him money, and they're going to use every last ounce of Le'Veon Bell.
And he played everywhere. He was running back. He was in the slot. They put him out wide. He literally was all over the field.
Oh, yeah. And now the Quincy Enunwa news, that neck injury on IR and traded for Demaryius Thomas, who was absolutely cooked. I don't care what he did week 4 of the preseason. There's just less for them to throw to until Chris Herndon comes back. It's going to be a 3-man show in New York for the foreseeable future with Le'Veon, Robbie Anderson, and Jamison Crowder until he inevitably gets hurt.
Yeah, Crowder led
17 targets.
Crowder, that was astonishing. But Gase loves the slot, and they brought him in specifically to play that role. So while he's never going to see 17 targets again in a game, there's no reason he can't see 8 to 10 every week.
Yep, 100% agree. Bill's side, guy that looked explosive was Singletary. Geez, when he got the rock, man, he was making some cuts and making defenders look silly. Something that I think we'll see more moving forward, Walker.
You have to, and I'll almost turn this over to John just as an homage for him and Singletary. But Singletary was on the field the whole game. They just weren't giving him the ball until late in the game. That was the most astonishing part. But I'll give John the floor on this one.
No, I don't have much to add. 70% snap share. Frank Gore had 28%. So he saw the field significantly more, even though Gore had quite a few touches.
I would just feel like you'd come back onto the Devin Singletary train.
You know what?
No, I'm still. I mean, no. I need to see a little more. I'm not.
His change of direction was unbelievable.
Yeah, I'm jumping on ship after seeing it on the field in live speed. I'm on the train because he stopped and then acted like he was cut and then just took off running from this linebacker and cornerback. I'm like, holy shit, he's real.
His game speed is impressive. Yeah.
Can't coach that stuff. Let's move on and get out of there. It's pretty nasty. Let's go to an even uglier game. The running back, Lamar Jackson, came in and played quarterback this week and went lights out, hooking up with Hollywood Brown numerous times. John got off the pod because he didn't want to hear about Hollywood. He got a little scared. Hopefully he rejoins us. But Walk, any takeaways from that? Do you think it's a fluke, or do you think this could be a reoccurring, maybe Deshaun Jackson-esque type of player?
Well, interestingly enough, Lamar Jackson had more touchdowns and incomplete passes in the game, 5-3. Did make note before we went live that the Mark Andrews touchdown actually came from RG3. So Mark Andrews had an amazing day, but somehow that touchdown didn't come from Lamar Jackson. And then Hollywood Brown played 14 snaps, 14 total snaps for that massive stat line. So it was largely a product of the Dolphins defense and the fact that they're clearly not even trying to come close to winning any games this season. So fire up any offensive player against the Dolphins for the rest of the season. But it was impressive what Lamar Jackson did. Didn't run at all. I think he had 6 rushing yards, but he just sat in that pocket and picked those Dolphins apart. They got no pressure on him. Hollywood Brown was running free. Our boy Willie Snead caught a nice touchdown. Miles Boykin got one on a busted play. Just everyone ate. Mark Ingram, 2 rushing touchdowns. It was a bonanza for those Baltimore Ravens.
Justice Hill had a couple good runs as well, but I don't think he's going to really start cutting into the work till maybe later in the year if something happens with Ingram, because he looked like a beast coming out, but I don't think anyone wouldn't playing against those Miami Dolphins. Preston Williams might be one of the only bright spots on the Dolphins at this moment. John, what do you think?
This is just a bloodbath. You can't take anything away from this game. I mean, one team was up by 100, the other one's trailing by 100. So they didn't, it was nice to see, good for fantasy production, but there's nothing you're going to take from this to build on going forward.
Yeah,
that's a game.
I think Devontae Parker might end up having that garbage season that they're just so far behind so often that he's going to end up with like 1,000 or 1,200 yards and like 6 or 8 touchdowns.
Yeah, or
Thinks he's Allen Robinson.
Goddamn right, they're both Florida bound.
Let's go. Maybe he's one of those guys begging for a trade, but let's go to the Redskins and the Eagles. I'll start with John because he's not biased here. Carson Wentz looked to me a little shaky at the go until he connected with Deshaun on that deep pass, and then it was all downhill from there. Running backs is what I'm most concerned about. Do you have the snap share for the Eagles?
I have the important ones, which is Sanders had 48% of the snaps, and fucking Darren Sproles out of the nursing home right onto the field for 31%, and they got him involved.
Yeah,
I don't think anybody was expecting Darren Sproles to be a featured part of this Peterson offense, but here we are.
So, Walker, I'm getting to the point where I think the Eagles are just holding Jordan Howard for trade pieces. So when the running back goes down within the league, they say, hey, we have Jordan Howard. What are you going to give us? Because that's what it sure seems like. They've been shopping him all offseason since acquiring him.
Yeah, I was going to say, deny it or not, they clearly tried to upgrade for Melvin Gordon and lowballing those Chargers. But my side was that Miles Sanders actually handled 42% of the rushing work. So he might not have had the snap share, but he had 11 rushes in the game. Actually had a touchdown called back by a phantom blocking penalty on J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, which was like a textbook pancake block down the field that got called back. I'm buying Miles Sanders. The Darren Sproles thing, I think they didn't get the lead they wanted early against those Redskins, and they just trust Sproles and kind of those hurry up and 2-minute offenses, which is why I think he got the touches he did. It's going to persist, but I just don't see Jordan Howard really cutting into Miles Sanders' snap share except in blowouts. But Deshaun Jackson, 8 for 152, 154, and 2 touchdowns with 2 50-yard touchdowns. That was nice to see, especially as an Eagles fan. That's been missing from our offense for the past few years. So that's going to open things up for everyone once defenses start respecting that.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm pretty sure it was you saying don't expect much or too much stuff with Miles Sanders early on, but also don't overreact to him not getting 20 carries because that probably won't happen.
Yeah, the numbers lie. Don't stat sheet evaluate him because watching him in the game, he looked a lot better than his 11 for 25. And I think as the season goes on, we're going to see what Miles Sanders is capable of.
Yep. All right, let's move on. We'll go to the Rams at Carolina.
Hold on. Before we go on, John, want to talk about Terry McLaurin? Got to give him the floor.
I don't. Kid's electrifying out there. But the one thing to talk about Washington was Geis hurt again, going to be out a couple weeks. And Chris Thompson. There's some crazy splits. I couldn't find it. I heard somebody talk about it on the radio, but I missed it. In games the Redskins win and versus the games they lose, Thompson's the guy to own when they're losing. And this is a pretty shitty team, I think. And especially with Geis out now, AP is going to be coming back, getting the main load as the running, quote unquote, running back. But Thompson had 64% snap share. And I think that's going to continue as this team continues to lose. So if Chris Thompson is out there on waivers, grab him immediately.
Yeah, it's a shame about Geis, and it's the other knee now. It's an MCL. That dude just fucking snake bit. But you're right on AP. He's not a pass catcher, and they're going to need a pass catching back. So Thompson, while he remains healthy, and that's an issue for him, is going to be a PPR nightmare for opposing teams because Keenum will check down to him. He had 10 targets in that game, 7 for 68. That's that. You can write that stat line in almost every week for Thompson.
I don't think that's bad information at all. I don't think there's bad information when you draft Christian McCaffrey. That dude just went off. So in the rushing, he had 128. Receiving, he had 10 catches again. Did he have 11 last year to open the year? I can't remember. Something crazy like that.
Sounds about right.
Oh, man. So that's like 30
12,
touches.
Maybe 12.
12. So pretty much pushing on 30 touches for the game. Over 200 and something yards from scrimmage. We don't really have to talk about him too much. He is who we thought he was.
And he lost a 1-yard touchdown.
Oh, yeah. That's true.
The fullback. I mean, it could have been a bigger day for him.
Right. So, I mean, on the Panther side, the only concern I think was with the wide receivers. We talked about that. DJ Moore looks like to be the wide receiver 1. Curtis Samuel only had 3 catches for 32. DJ Moore had 7. But he did have a fumble walk. What are you taking away from the Carolina Panthers side of the ball?
First off, Greg Olsen was on the field the entire game and turned in a 4 for 36. He's hurt with a back, unrelated to his foot, and they have a short week on Thursday. But still, our boy Ian Thomas didn't do shit.
Nope.
But DJ Moore pretty much substantiated himself as that pass catcher. I think Curtis Samuel's going to have a few big games, but Moore's the one that you want. And as far as Christian McCaffrey is concerned, this just goes to show you that coaches are liars because he played 100% of the snaps in week 1. Every report was that they were going to dial back his snaps but not his touches. He did not leave the field again in week 1, and Rivera's already come out and pretty much said, yeah, we just can't get him off the field.
Yeah, it's hard to deny that. John, on the Rams side of the ball, Jared Goff looked like he got outperformed by Gardner Minshew when he stepped into like the second quarter. So I don't think we got to worry too much. But what else did you see on the Rams side of the ball?
Not much. I mean, Gurley did see 70% of the snaps. He did get vultured for those touchdowns from Marlon Brown. So that's not a great way to start. Malcolm Brown. It's not a great way to start, but I mean, if you're looking to get Gurley, this is probably a decent buy low window because people are a little discouraged. But going back to Carolina, I mean, I said one of my busts would be one of the wide receivers, and I wasn't sure who, but it was based on the volume just not being there. And this game, Moore got 10 targets, Curtis Samuel got 4. The worst case scenario is going to be if that number flip flops each week. Because now everybody thinks, Moore's the guy. Next week could be a Samuel game. He gets 10, Moore gets 4. So that's if I owned either one of them, that's my big fear going into weeks 2, 3, and 4 is that the totals end up being the same, but it's not, a week to week thing. You're rolling the dice, which one hits, which one misses.
The sad but true statement is McCaffrey's the only person you can confidently own on this team, and neither one of those receivers should be above a wide receiver 3 on your team, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'm trying to get Cam Newton's rushing attempts. He only had 3 carries for -2 yards, so it's not the Cam of old. He did not look, spry when he did try to run. He was just trying to get down. So
I'm going to say it probably has something to do with that ankle that
right
he caught in the preseason.
That's why you don't try to juke people in the preseason and scramble. A la Romo. But on the Rams side of the ball, targets went everywhere. Robert Woods led in receptions this week, but I think still to this point, Cooper Kupp is the guy I want in that offense for the receivers. He just runs those, 7-yard intermediate routes, and Goff loves to pepper him with targets. The odd man out looked like Brandon Cooks this week. So that's another situation like John was explaining with the Panthers that I think the Rams have themselves. There's 3 wide receivers to pick from. It's just which one's going to go off that week.
Yeah, they were supporting him last year in a perfect storm, but that doesn't historically happen. So we're probably going to see a more realistic, pass funneling and 13 to Woods, 10 to Kupp, 6 to Cooks. That sounds probably about right on a week-to-week basis. So Cooks better start hitting on some deep balls, if he wants to, return value.
All right. Well, move on to Indy, the Andrew Luckless Colts. John, anything you like moving forward this year for fantasy? I mean, Brissett didn't look horrible.
No, he was definitely serviceable, and I think a big part of that is just being under Frank Reich. The interesting thing at running back for both teams, Eckler, 75% snap share, and Marlon Mack, 76%. I think you're going to see a lot of usage from both of them. I've been an Eckler truther since day one, so I think now that he's going to appears to be getting the full workload. I know there was some talk going in that JJ was going to get a lot of the early down work, but that just didn't happen, and Eckler looked good out there. So give me Eckler, give me Marlon Mack going forward. They both should have pretty decent years, and they're going to have to lean on Mack because they're not going to want to give all the work to Brissett to try to win these games.
Yeah, speaking of leaning on Mack, Walker, 25 for 174 and a touch. Those are some pretty nice numbers.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty much all in the second half. He didn't do anything in the first half, and he had a 63-yard touchdown in the second half that really helped that stat line. It was along of his career. But the Colts' offensive line, arguably the best in the league. So if their defense can hold up and keep games close, John's right. They want to run this offense through Marlon Mack. 25 touches. He only had one, I think, target in the game, if I'm not mistaken. No targets. My apologies. in the game. Not happy to see that, but that's not that much of an anomaly. I do think he can catch the ball, but as long as he gets 25 carries a game, I'm okay with it. And to John's point with those Chargers, the rushing down work was 2-1, so it wasn't that much of a discrepancy. But clearly, where Eckler makes his hay is in that passing game. And he had a monster, 6 for 96 and 2. And we all know that Phil Rivers loves checking down those running backs all the way back to the Danny Woodhead days. So that is going to continue to happen. I mean, one of his was a long touchdown that's probably, unrepeatable. But Eckler is a running back one, unless and until Melvin Gordon comes back.
I was actually just going to ask both you guys. So up until whatever we'll say comes back through, I've heard week 6 and week 10, up until Gordon comes back, Eckler's definitely top 12 every week, you think?
Yeah, I mean, he's James White from last year. He's a dude that doesn't.
And he's a better rusher.
Yeah, but he still just doesn't need that rushing because he's going to get the receiving work.
He's I think he's personally more explosive than James White when he does get the receptions. Runs with power and agility.
He's impressive.
Yes.
Jackson looked good too, though. I mean, watch the game. Justin Jackson actually looked good running the ball as well. So that's going to flip week to week, rushing downs. But Eckler's getting all the receiving work.
And this is one thing I was going to bring up before we close out here, kind of spending a little time. But now that Mike Williams, I haven't heard any new news, has a knee issue. Obviously, Keenan Allen's the number one. But who's number two? You got guys like Benjamin Inman, or is it
Dontrell Inman? It's going to be Inman again.
It's Hunter Henry is who it is.
Yeah, and speaking of tight ends, Eric Ebron was nowhere to be found half the time in the red zone. They did bring him in. He got the ball stripped at the last second, so his touchdown did not count. Kind of ruined the day for him. He only had 1 catch for 8 yards. Walker was right. Should sell after Luck went down. It seems like they totally changed their game plan or how they're going to run their offense to me, because he wasn't even on the field. And when you got the CBS, announcers noticing Ebron's not on the field, then something's going on. So
listen, six targets for all of the tight ends. I mean, just find a game where Luck didn't target his primary tight end more than 6 times in a single game. It's just the product of this new offense.
Right. And we'll go to Seattle and the Bengals. This is a great one. This is hilarious. John Ross goes for 158 and 2. Just kind of picking up where he left off last year. I think John was the one that fed us that stat, where he scored 7 times last year. Well, I think he might eclipse that if he stays on this same pace, John. So, what do you think about the John Ross? Is it a little overreaction, or
that was a Walker stat that blew my mind? But the interesting thing is he had 12 targets in this game, and this is a little pop quiz for you guys. Do you know who led the Bengals in snaps at wide receiver?
Damian Willis.
You son of a bitch. Yeah. 69 snaps. He did not. He led them by a pretty decent margin. Ross, I believe, was second. And then Tyler Boyd was third, who played exclusively out of the slot. He did not get a single target on those 69 snaps, though.
What you talking about, Willis? But, it was pretty.
Answer, and they kicked me right out of the chat.
Yep.
Immediately blacklisted me for knowing that answer.
I think John booted you, but I wanted to ask you about Joe Mixon. I know he had the ankle issue. Everything is day to day. Everything says it's all good. We're not panicking yet, are we? Please let me know, because you're the one that made me get him everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still in on Mixon, but any ankle injury gives me concern with running backs. We talked about Fournette earlier. Ankles are important for running backs. They linger if you don't let them heal. I didn't hear it was high ankle, but still, if they trot him back out there next week, I actually would be concerned. I'd prefer them sit him a week, let Gio do some work and get his ankle right, because he'll lose his explosiveness, and that's a death knell for Mixon. I'm still there. I still think dude's uber talented, and what this offense did, throwing for 400 passing yards, that's going to lead to touchdown opportunities for Mixon, and he can be on the field catching passes as well. So I'm not scared of Mixon. He didn't look great even before he got hurt, but better days are ahead.
Yep, they definitely are. Go ahead.
For the Bengals going forward, they go into Seattle, throw for 400. They bring in Zach Taylor, who's kind of comes from the Sean McVay coaching tree. I didn't think they'd be good, but I had a sneaky feelings could possibly happen. Are the Bengals going to be fantasy relevant across the board? Are they going to be kind of a high volume, putting up these kind of numbers regularly? Because this is, yeah, you're thinking so?
Yeah, I mean, I might have to be a check the tape moment when we went over the AFC North. I think I said that they're going to be better offense. Anything better than Marvin Lewis is going to be an upgrade. But modern NFL, and they have pass catchers. If AJ Green can come back with any semblance of himself and slot Ross and Boyd back where they belong, and then you still have those pass catching running backs out of the backfield, this could be a huge season for a team that will have to throw it a lot because their defense stinks.
Yeah, if you want to go back and fact check, just go check out our episode, the Fantasy Pet Cemetery. I'm pretty sure we dug up the whole Bengals offense and said that they have a really great shot of coming back to life. And look at us now. Let's go to the Seattle side of the ball.
I particularly want to talk about this because I'm not a Chris Carson hater by any means. I like the guy. I think he's good. But the fact that people are just now burying Rashad Penny, Chris Carson didn't really do that well either. I mean, he had 21 total touches for 81 yards. He had 2 touchdowns. That's great. Look good on your, and look, his final stat line looked good for fantasy purposes. But, if he didn't 6 for 35 and a touchdown receiving, I mean, he was terrible running the ball, so don't shit on Rashad Penny for only having 6 for 18 rushing. It's still one that I'm interested to see how this finishes because, I think they're both good running backs, but I don't think the difference between the two of them is as vast as most people want you to believe.
You kind of knew where I was going to go there. You were defending your boy before I could get him, so good there. Speaking of defending boys, the wide receiver 1 for Seattle is my boy, DK Metcalf. He looked the part, big, strong, ran his go routes and his deep stuff, and Russell Wilson was finding him. Everyone thought Tyler Lockett was going to come out and get 37 targets, and that just wasn't the case, John. Is it an overreaction, or you think this is trending that way?
I mean, Walker had mentioned, the current NFL, it's going pass heavy. There's a couple teams, Seattle, Minnesota. There's somebody else I had written down, but I can't find it. There are a few teams that are saying, you know what, fuck this. We're going the opposite direction. And they're going to run the ball more than 50% of the time. I think that's just going to be Seattle, which is stupid because they have one of the best quarterbacks in football. But I don't think – I think you're going to need the big plays from Metcalf and Lockett, which is good because they're both good at that. But I just don't see the volume being there. My little fanboy John Ursua, I don't think is going to get the volume to be fantasy relevant because I think they're going to try to run this offense through Chris Carson's legs.
Was John Ursua even active for this game? And I know
he did. 0 targets.
Yeah.
I think that's my question, though. I mean,
we're probably that other team, by the way. They had actually more rushes than pass attempts in week 1 as well.
That's true.
I think it's swinging back the other way for a lot of teams.
But you still dodged my question.
True. Answer the question.
Yes.
DK Metcalf, the wide receiver 1 in Seattle already.
No. Fuck no.
No, he is.
I didn't mean that.
The answer is yes.
I did not mean to ask John. I meant to ask you, Walk. What do you think?
The answer is yes. I mean, He got 30% of the targets week 1 as a rookie coming off of a knee scope with limited action with Wilson. Looks like Wilson trusts him. I like Lockett as much as anyone else, but 2 targets. Lucky got that 44-yard touchdown, which he seems to always do. But This is what Lockett is. He's a low volume guy. He is never going to be their target leader.
That's what I was going to say is he did what Tyler Lockett does. Usually it's like 2 for 84 and a touch or something like that. 1 for 42, like you said. So I believe the same, but I didn't think it was going to be this great in week 1 for DK. Not that it was like mind blowing, but it was a good enough showing for me to get excited.
Wonderful showing. Week 1.
So speaking of wonderful showings, let's go to the Giants, who did not have a wonderful showing, but they had a few guys fantasy relevant. How does a guy like Saquon Barkley only get 11 rushes and goes off for 120 and you still don't get him the ball? It kind of puzzles me there.
Wayne Gallman got 20% of the snaps. That's why.
Wayne Gallman stole his touchdown too. And the way that Barkley does is he broke off a 59-yarder on the first series. And so he pretty much was eliminated when the Cowboys just started dropping points from the sky on those Giants the rest of the game. So it just limits his rushing upside, and that's the problem with Barkley. I took him 101 in a 10-team league I'm in, and I was conflicted the whole time. I was all Christian McCaffrey going in, and I was like, you know what? I don't own Saquon anywhere. I want to share. I want to, I want to root for this guy, and I'm 0 for 1 in that decision thus far. So it's a tough one. Probably should even consider Dalvin Kamara over him. So
right. I put this game in with Baltimore and Miami. Like the score wasn't as lopsided, but Dallas beat the shit out of the Giants. It's hard to really take anything meaningful out of this game also.
Well, I don't think
Evan
so.
Ingram's the wide receiver one in New York for the foreseeable future.
11 for 116 and a touchdown on that line for Evan Ingram. But I think the biggest surprise on the Giants side of the ball was Eli. He didn't look horrible. He went 30 for 44, 306 and a touch. That's better than what Jameis, Garoppolo, guys like that gave you. That. So that was kind of surprising on the Dallas side of the ball. I think they just used Zeke as a decoy the whole game. All their touchdowns were pretty much off play action. And our boy Gallup, he looked like he solidified himself as the wide receiver too there in Dallas. And I started actually Gallup and Cooper because I thought it was going to be a blowout, and I got pretty lucky there with that gamble because they both went for over 100. So I don't necessarily think Dak or the Dallas offense will be able to support wide receiver, two wide receivers all year, but this was the game to do it, I guess. Walk.
Yeah, Gallup looked amazing. I mean, he did. I can't begrudge the guy. That offense looked night and day different under Kellen Moore than previous renditions. They were moving people around. They were putting in people in positions to succeed. Dak looked amazing, on point with his passes. That was with Zeke doing little in that game. He did a lot more than Tony Pollard with the same amount of touches, though. So I think we can put that Tony Pollard situation to bed. Zeke's going to be kind of full go in a week and to see his 20-plus touches. But I think we can say, and I'd say the same for Lamar Jackson, discussing the Ravens earlier. That I'm pretty sure that was Dak's best game of the year. And say the same for Lamar Jackson. We're not going to see 404 again from Dak.
Oh, you make me smile.
This is a question maybe more for Andrew as a Cowboys fan. But if the Cowboys didn't pay what they paid to get Amari Cooper with the way Gallup has kind of developed now, do you think they'd even give a shit about trying to sign him? I mean, they're obligated to sign him now because they're on the hook because they gave up a first and whatever else they gave up, right?
Right.
So if they knew what they had in Gallup, like if this was all pushed to this year, let's say that, they trade for Cooper now. Do you think they're even in a rush to sign him? Like, he might be the odd man out because Gallup's kind of emerging.
Yeah, I don't think they expected, personally, Gallup to develop this quickly. I'm not saying he's an elite wide receiver, but he does enough, and he looks great right now in year 2. I don't think they expected that. I think they were going to go out and get somebody in free agency, but now it's just what do we do here? Because I mean, you're right. You hit the nail on the head.
Well, listen, the irony is they still haven't paid Cooper. And maybe that's
right.
Part of the problem is that they're like, hey, things done changed. We're not giving you $20 million a year to be a wide receiver for us. Like, sure, they gave up a first-round pick for him, and they had him hit second half of last year. They'll have him all this year. Maybe they're trying to hardball with him and try and get that price a little more palatable. That's probably why he hasn't been one of these guys that's gotten the money yet.
Right. So that's a good point. Something to keep an eye on as the season continues. But I think Jerry's getting a little excited, and he thinks it's Super Bowl time. So he's going to probably try to get everyone signed before they do or do not make it. So that's my guess. Middle of the year, maybe on the bye week, they get the deal done. But let's go to San Fran and Tampa Bay. That Tampa Bay fandom is probably short-lived. I was kind of in the same boat as you. I was actually caught myself watching this game a little too much for how much trash was going on on the field. But let's start with San Francisco. I mean, this game was just ugly. Coleman went down. Breida led in carries, but only averaged 2.5 with 15 carries. So I don't know what to take from this game besides Dante Pettis was only on the field for 2 snaps. Walk.
Yeah, I mean, this game was ugly throughout, and we're on the 49er side. It's go get Raheem Mostert time. He looked good in limited action last year. Tevin Coleman got injured, as you said, which was predictable. So Mostert's going to be seeing a fair amount of work. He looked good. He had 9 for 40 rushing in this game. Breida in and out with injuries, as we've come to expect, unfortunately, from Breida. So Mostert could have sneaky value as soon as this coming week. My thought was that George Kittle had 2 touchdowns called back by penalty in the game. So the stat line could have looked a lot different for Garoppolo and for him. Kittle still had 8 for 54, but could have been a bigger day. And ironically enough, on the other side, Cameron Brate had 2 touchdowns called back as well. So it was the day of the tight end touchdown reversal.
You can tell who the refs were playing against in fantasy. John, on the Tampa Bay side, Arians was trying to, kind of bail out Winston for the poor quarterback play that was going down that game. He went 20 for 36, 194, 3 interceptions. He did get a late touchdown to Chris Godwin, but it did not look pretty. But Arians had an excuse for every interception. I know you don't like Winston, but he's got to do better than this, no?
No, I think this is more of what you're going to get. I think he played to his talent level. He throws a lot of interceptions. He was who I know he is. I'm not surprised at all. And I'd mentioned before when Arians got there, I know a lot of people are all excited. I wrote something for DLF about the coaching changes, and when I dug into Arians' numbers, they're not good. He wears a cool Kangol hat, and everyone thinks he's awesome. And he seduces and hypnotizes people with his stupid hat, because he hasn't had that much success, to be honest. When you look at what he's done and how his players have done, especially for our concern for fantasy, the numbers aren't there. So that's why I've been off on Tampa this whole time. It's 1 week. I'm not taking a victory lap yet, but early return on my non-investment looks really good. I think this is a bad team.
Go ahead, Walk.
Yep, I'm here. My boy Nick Whalen was all against me as I was promoting Chris Godwin because of the reduction in pass attempts, and that there was, it was unlikely that they were going to throw it as much as they did last year. And I don't disagree. I mean, they did only throw it 36 times in the game. Winston did look bad. I'm not going to defend him like Arians did, but I think better days are ahead. 49ers defense is a little underrated. I'm not going to say they're good. I'm not going to say they're top 5 defense, but they're a good defense. Godwin still did get his touchdown. Week 1 better than Mike Evans is in the books. So we're just going to saddle up for 16 more of that. But what we are not talking about is Ronald fucking Jones.
I was so excited, dude. Probably taken in your super later rounds because everyone's on Peyton Barber's nuts. But Ronald Jones looked efficient, averaging 5.8 yards a carry. He went 13 for 75 yards.
Even had an 18-yard catch.
He did. He might be on your waivers in your 10-team redraft leagues just because those aren't as deep. But I'm sure on 12 teams he's probably rostered. If he isn't, that's going to be one of my ads of the week because Arians knows how to use these guys, like the Bruce Ellington. I'm not saying Ronald Jones is as explosive as Ellington once was, but he looked good, just like you were saying, Walk. I can't wait to hear what we got.
Listen, my boy Ogunbowale, though, was second in the team in targets and had 4 for 33 receiving. So he's not going away either. He's going to be there. Passing down backs was going to limit Jones' upside a little bit. But
I was just going to point out as well, John, that Brashad Perryman had the same amount of catches as Mike Evans. But anything else about Tampa Bay before we move on?
They suck.
Oh, and it's not week 1 without a tie. So we'll go to Arizona where the Lions and the Cardinals squared off, and it was ugly as shit for quite some time. Kyler Murray couldn't get anything going. Stafford looked like he had the game in the bag. TJ Hawkinson blew my mind. I did not expect the output he did. He went 6 for 131 and a touchdown. You guys also pointed out last week that Danny Amendola could have a huge role in this offense. He did as well, 7 for 104 and a touchdown. It's hard in this game because, the Lions were up so much at the beginning, and we knew Arizona was going to have to throw the ball. What's your main takeaway from this game, Walk?
Yeah, I wrote Hawkinson as a beast. I don't think that's an anomaly. I just like that he came right out of the gate. That dude's immediately in the tight end one conversation. I mean, he's just that good. He's a special player, and I think they will continue to utilize him. Amendola will be a thing. I don't think that's going away either. 13 targets is probably not going to happen. It was an overtime game, so he'll probably settle in the 6 to 8 targets. But you saw what Golden Tate was for Matthew Stafford for a number of years, and I wrote. DJ is a receiving threat again, 6 for 55 and a touchdown for David Johnson on the Cardinals side. That was my biggest takeaway, is that was missing from his game last year, and it's a huge part of his success in previous years. So it was impressive to see him involved in the passing game.
And they kept him on the field, 87% snap share instead of the shit taking him out for Chase Edmonds on the fucking goal line last year.
Yeah, Chase Edmonds 1 for 5
Yep.
in an overtime game, so don't be afraid of him vulturing anything.
Yeah, so one more thing, John, I wanted to ask you about is old man Fitzgerald comes out of the gates with 8 for 113 and a touchdown. I know it was a whole extra quarter, and they ended up tying, but at the end of the game when Murray started finding his stride with the ball, he was stared and locked in on Fitzgerald, and it's something I think that will probably continue to happen now that he knows what he's got in him,
Yeah, I felt like this was a flashback to 2012. Amendola and Fitzgerald both had 13 targets. Gotten a little bit of a time machine here, and the most important thing for me is it's just probably my hater nature, but a tie. I love tie football games. I think I just love it because other people hate it, but
yeah,
clearly no one wanted to win the game. The underreported part was Kerryon Johnson, had 16 carries, but our boy CJ Anderson had 11 carries in that game. And that's concerning to me that they're not going to trust Kerryon Johnson as a bell cow. They're not going to do it. That's why they brought CJ Anderson there. And Kerryon only had 2 catches in the game, while JD McKissick had the same amount. It's concerning for Kerryon's upside. He's a flex running back until further notice.
I mean, you've mentioned it before, Walker. You're like, he's just good at stuff, but not great at anything. And I think at the end of the day, Anderson's probably a better, running back. There's other guys who are better at receiving than him. So just through attrition, I think these other guys are going to eat his touches because they're better at him than specific tasks, even though he might be better all around. The other guys are better at doing 1 or 2 specific things, and I think that hurts him.
And I think that the Matt Patricia, believes in that methodology where you can have specialized players. I mean, you see it with the Patriots.
Yep. He's just following suit from what he knows and where he came from. So no qualms there. One qualm I do have, and you know me, I'm all, you look good, you play good, but Jesus, CJ Anderson in the White Lions jersey looks bigger than Mike Tolbert did in his later years. I'm just like, what the hell? The Stay Puft Marshmallow Man's in the backfield. But other than that, we'll move on. I just wanted to throw that out there, kind of like the hooded sweatshirt. So let's go to, there wasn't too many close games this week. This is another one that I turned off by halftime. It was the Pittsburgh Steelers going against the Patriots. I was pretty high on Philip Dorsett for best ball, but now it looks like he is kind of, easing himself into this offense, and Brady trusts him a little bit. What do you think?
Listen, we'll reserve judgment on Philip Dorsett until we hear a little bit more about this Antonio Brown situation. Because if Antonio Brown's on the Patriots, Philip Dorsett is irrelevant, immediately. But Tom Brady just looked amazing. He just cut them up at will, picked them apart. Josh Gordon looked like he never missed a game of football. I mean, he's big as shit. That dude is damn near tight end size, but still runs fast, and he's just amazing. But what this offense can be, if indeed AB is on the field and, opposite Josh Gordon with Edelman in the slot and James White coming out of the backfield, that's just a scary proposition. The one thing I did want to note is Sony Michel. I still love him.
Oh, man.
Don't be afraid. It was a bad game. He was running in the walls. No one ran well for those Patriots. If they can stretch these defenses, and I do think it will require an Antonio Brown addition to this offense, it's going to open up running lanes for Michelle, and I'm going to go on record say Sony Michel week 2 will be a top 10 running back against the Miami Dolphins.
You heard it from Walk, but just to give you the lines here, Rex Burkhead 8 for 44, average 5.5. James White 4 for 26, average 6.5, and then you have Michelle at 15 carries, 14 yards. 0.9 yards a carry. That's some Evander Holyfield or whatever his name is stat lines. Elijah. So is there anything you want to
Evander too?
They're gonna bring his ass in. But John, is there anything you want to talk about during this game?
I say this all the time. You just can't. Week to week, this Patriots backfield is just untrustworthy. Sexy Rexy gets 46% snap share and leads them with targets out of the backfield with 8. I think, if I'm not mistaken, Brandon Bolden got the first carry of the game too.
Yep. Yeah, I blew my mind when I saw that. I was just like, what is going on? It's going to be like this?
Yeah.
I mean, we're burying the lead, though. You know, James Conner barely did more with his 10 carries for 21 yards out of that Pittsburgh backfield. He did do a little better catching the ball 4 for 44, but a notable omission to that game plan was Jalen Samuels. And Pittsburgh's got to fix that quick. Because when you're down by 30 in a game, why the fuck is Jalen Samuels not on the field?
Right.
So talking about snap share too, everyone's like, oh, it's not going to be a timeshare, and it wasn't a true split. But Connor 46% snap share, Samuels 33. So I think that's a lot closer than the Connor truthers were believing going in. And somebody else I'd like to bash if I get a chance. Everyone was high on Vance McDonald, even though they came out and said he's not going to get more work. And then he got 4 targets in this game that they were trailing by 30. So I don't think McDonald is going to have the volume that a lot of people thought he was coming in. And going back to the Patriots, did you guys see yesterday? It's probably a joke, but you see Gronk was on.
Oh yeah, I saw it
on Barstool and said he's going to come back week 14. Now they think he's joking, but they're not sure. But he said it.
Yeah.
Listen, he's already come out and he said like how long it would take him to get back into game shape because he's dropped a ton of weight. That dude doesn't look like the same Gronk, but he's dropped little breadcrumbs before. So who knows what it's going to be like. Listen, if I'm Gronk and I know the Patriots are playoff bound, I get a shot at another Super Bowl run and don't have to play the first 13 weeks of the season. Get to go have fun for a couple of months. Why wouldn't you? It's probably almost assumed I would be more surprised if he didn't at this point than if he did, just because it's Gronk.
I saw a funny Twitter poll. What do you think's more likely? Miami goes 0-16 or the Patriots go 16-0?
Miami going 0-16.
That's what I said too.
Yeah, I mean, flips are going to happen in a perfect season, but listen, they're not even trying. I mean, the fact that they just get to play Buffalo and the Jets, no disrespect to either of those teams, their defenses are stellar, but they're going to have, puncher's chances in those games just because they're division matchups. But they're 18.5-point dogs against the Patriots, and I don't think that's near enough this week.
No, it should be 21.
So, yeah, that's give me there. All right, we're moving on to Monday night, right?
Yeah, we're going to Monday, and it's the Texans and Saints, probably the best game of the week. Back and forth battle. I mean, what was there? 2 touchdowns scored in under 50 seconds or something like that to end the game. Or wait, it was a field goal. But
it was like under 30 seconds. Yeah, touchdown and field goal. 10 points in like the last 30 seconds of the game.
Yeah, so pretty explosive stuff. All the guys that we thought were going to do something did something. The one guy I want to talk about is Carlos Hyde. He looked powerful. He looked like Lamar Miller reincarnated, really, when it comes down to it. Nothing too crazy, but he went 10 for 83. And I'm trying to see. He did not do too much in the passing game, 1 for 2 yards. But if you need a running back and you're in desperate need, I think Hyde right now is the guy to own. Duke Johnson looked good in the passing game and with his rushes. So, something to keep an eye on. I mean, I think that's the most interesting thing there out of the game for the Houston side, just because we know what Hopkins is and he did what he does and Fuller and Still. So that's what my takeaway from there.
Yeah, I'm just glad I said they upgraded on both running back positions right before the start of the season. Traded out Lamar Miller and Devonta Foreman for Carlos Hyde and Duke Johnson. So they definitely got better. Their offensive line still look like dog shit. I'll give Tunsil a pass on trying to acclimate after like 5 days, but Deshaun Watson got sacked, I think 6 times, got hit countless more times than that. It's still it's still not where it needs to be for that team, what they gave up to get him. But the running game looked good. DeAndre Hopkins was DeAndre Hopkins. I like that Stills, he trusted Stills late in the game for that touchdown catch. They have a great receiving core now. I mean, if Kuti can come back, geez, that's an impressive group of guys to throw to for Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, they're going to need it because they don't have any, draft picks coming up with all the moves they've been. Yeah, moves they've been making. John, on the Saints side of the ball, nothing really surprising there as well, except for besides that one run, I wasn't overly impressed with Latavius Murray, but I think there will be more in the weeks to come. They're kind of easing him in, but not the way Kamara looked when he got the ball. Jesus, that guy looked like a beast this week.
Yeah, I fell asleep. I missed most of this game, but the little bit I saw, Latavius Murray looked pretty good. I think they're going to use him like I thought in that Ingram role. His snap share wasn't as high as I would have liked it, but other than that, I mean, the fantasy producers in this game kind of did what we were expecting them to do coming in.
Yeah, and I don't think Ted Ginn's going to be this PPR guy that he was in this game. He went 7 for 101. I just think it was how the game kind of worked out.
Well, yeah, and listen, the Saints were behind for the majority of this game, which would easily explain the Kamara usage over Latavius Murray. I think better days are ahead with those Saints and their positive game scripts. We're going to see Latavius Murray touch the ball more.
And Ginn's one of those guys you play at home. When the Saints are playing in the Dome, you play him. When the Saints are on the road, you leave him on your bench.
Yeah.
Agreed. All right, let's close it down with the Broncos and the Raiders. This was kind of a boring game for a while till about the end. I don't know, the third quarter it started getting a little interesting, but nothing too crazy. Pretty much even splits at the running back position for Denver Walk. Who do you want out of that? I know we were all leaning Freeman preseason. Does week one sway the other way, or what are you feeling?
No, I mean, Lindsey didn't look good to me, but most of what Freeman did was on one carry. So I didn't like them running the ball at all. I mean, it was clear that Lindsey was the passing downs guy, and that's ultimately what you're going to want, especially in an offense that I think is going to be trailing quite often. So I like Freeman more as a running back, but I think Phil Lindsey's going to retain more value from a fantasy purpose. But the one that surprised me most was actually and I should probably twofold. Cortland Sutton looked good to me, and I'm not the biggest Cortland Sutton guy, but Emmanuel Sanders off of an Achilles, he didn't do anything in the first half. He exploded in the second half and had a really nice 5 for 86 and touchdown stat line. But I was impressed by Sutton. My boy Deshaun Hamilton let me down. Didn't get a lot of opportunity, but he dropped a easy touchdown. Touchdown.
I think he dropped 4 balls. He did.
Yep.
For a guy who's known to have really good hands, I was really surprised.
I believe he's Penn State's leading receiver, and besides getting the 0 from Geronimo Allison, this is my dud of the week. I kind of rolled him out in quite a few spots, thinking, what I saw in the preseason when he did work with Flacco, he was just getting peppered with targets, and it was still the case. He just wasn't catching them. Cause for concern, just because if you can't catch the ball, they're not going to keep you on the field. Not saying they're going to put him on the bench, but I think that's not how you want to start the year, especially as a young receiver.
No.
So keep your eyes on that. Not that they're too deep at the wide receiver position, but you can do a little better than 2 for 7 and dropping a touchdown pass. So I'm a little worried right now.
Yeah, they're going to be a lot of 3 wide sets. So again, he's a better days ahead guy. It was unfortunate that he dropped that touchdown, but he was a distant third as far as that team was concerned. This week, and that wasn't that good.
Right.
But Flacco did spread it around. So
yeah, he did spread it around. It was nice to see. Let's go to the other side of the ball. Walker, go ahead and get it out of the way. I know you want to go on a little rant, so we'll leave it up for you.
So happy. Josh Jacobs, this was on ESPN. He was the first player since 2001 with 100 scrimmage yards and 2 touchdowns in an NFL debut. 23 carries, and he had a beautiful 28-yard catch on his lone target. Beautiful. Right up the seam. Just looked amazing. I was more surprised that he only got 1 target in the game than the fact that he got 23 carries. Gruden has already come out and said that is the workload that we want Josh Jacobs to have this year. And granted, game script helped, but the Broncos' rush defense isn't too shabby. So he's one that I think the better rushing days are ahead, and I think he's going to touch the ball more than once as a pass catcher out of the backfield once they figure that out. So I was very impressed with him week 1, and I think my call of him being an RB1 this year is going to come to fruition.
Yeah, I can't disagree there. He looked good. I don't know what else to say. And the defense isn't weak by any means. I mean, they got Von Miller out there on the edge and Chubb. And he was running the ball, I would say, at will, even though it's 3.7 yards a carry. It is the Raiders, and 25 for 80 or 23 for 85 and 2 touches. I'll take that every week from anyone. So
clearly getting the goal line work. Both were goal to goes on his touchdowns, and he pounded them in. That's going to, give him the trust, of Gruden to call those plays going forward. So, and
then John, it's AB who, because Tyrell Williams looked explosive. I mean, there was one play when he caught that post route where he was the only receiver in the game. They ran double tight set and a fullback, and they just play action, and Carr trusted Williams to get open, which he did, and caught a big one. So that's obviously the wide receiver to own. But let's talk about the tight end, John Whaler.
Ooh, Darren Waller. Yeah, had a good game. Similar to Josh Jacobs. I mean, I came around on both of them based on, Gruden and what's his offensive coordinator, Greg Olson. Based on their history with players and where their targets go and how their touches get split up. Waller and Jacobs, even if they suck, let's pretend they're both terrible at football. They're going to volume their way into production. So Waller's obviously going to be a tight end 1 for the rest of the year, and Jacobs has a real good shot at RB1.
So I might be reaching here, but Hunter Renfrow only had 2 catches, but he was on the field. I think they work him in a little bit more to kind of, distribute the ball a little more throughout these wide receivers, because it was Williams and Waller and pretty much nothing after that.
Listen, they brought John's boy Keelan Doss back in and severely overpaid him. So we'll see.
What is he making, like $465?
He does too much.
So the way it all went was they go to put him on the practice squad. He says, and then so does Jacksonville. He says, all right, change the scenery. I go to Jacksonville. He gets to Jacksonville, and then the Raiders try to claim him. So then Jacksonville gives him a full rookie salary, not practice squad salary. So it's something like $400,000 a year. And they go, all right, we'll give you a full salary. So then the AB shit goes down, and the Raiders come back, and they go, we'll give you a full year guaranteed plus a $300,000 signing bonus. So I think the total ended up bumping him over $1 million or close to it, 780.
Yeah, it was close.
So
what it was is he ended up getting a $495,000 base. So you're 100 under on that, and then the $300,000 signing. So just shy of $800,000 this year from a practice squad.
Fully guaranteed.
Fully guaranteed.
Yep. Yeah, he's thanking Hard Knocks right now.
The thing is, too, obviously I talked about him all off season. And then he gets cut, goes to the practice squad. Then they let him go. He ends up in Jacksonville. All the leagues I had him in, where I drafted him late, I ended up cutting him in a couple. And now I'm trying to reacquire him for guys like Devontae Booker and draft picks. So I'm getting put over the barrel here, and I'm not too pleased about it. I should have just stuck to my guns, but I pussied out.
or you should just leave him alone. There's always
that's the other thing. I'm not overpaying. I'm not paying for you twice.
Let's be realistic. Don't pay for the AB bump.
Right.
Correct.
So,
listen, Gruden's come out, and going back to Waller, Gruden's actually come out and said, this kid is special. Like, they're going to scheme for him. John's absolutely right. I mean, and they've
ranted about him all off.
He's a nightmare. He's a mismatched nightmare. I mean, he is a wide receiver. I mean, he was in college. He just bulked up, and he's still just as fast, and he's just way bigger than anyone that's going to try and cover him, and just as fast.
Right. And what I was going to say again, if you're in a 10-team, maybe even 12-team league, he's probably on the waivers. You need to scoop him up, especially if you took a tight end late in the round. I don't think you can do worse at this point. I mean, it went from Jared Cook to now Waller. So I think that's a fair assumption that he's going to get peppered with targets and continue to.
On a unrelated IDP note, which we usually don't tap, Jonathan Abram, the rookie safety for the Raiders, is likely to go on IR. He tore his labrum and rotator cuff.
Oh, that's not good, because he looked really good on the field, laying some
wood.
Killing people.
He was.
Killed his own guy. He was the one that hit Gary and Conley.
Yeah. If you want to stay IDP in this game, I think my sleeper for Denver, I said Josie Jewell at middle linebacker, and I believe he had 12 tackles in this game.
Yeah.
Had a hell of a game, and same thing. He's going to be on the field in the middle of this Vic Fangio defense. He's going to volume his way to, I'm thinking top 12 at linebacker this year.
Entirely possible. CBS has him as a 7-7, so 14 total tackles.
Look at you guys. Look at you guys digging up those IDP gems and dusting them off. And those are good ones. So we had to sneak those IDPs in there at the end. This was kind of our recap show. We will try to get to a previews later this week and get them out to you by Friday. But we appreciate everyone taking a listen. That was an exciting week 1. Hopefully week 2 gets back to normal because all these guys that I considered studs were duds last week. I did drop some 60-point weeks in quite a few of my leagues. And then the other ones, I did really good in best ball. But that's because it was unexpected. So it was a kind of a funky week 1. Any final takeaways, John?
Nothing unusual. I mean, I think play everyone you can against Miami. I think fade Tampa Bay. Those are my main takeaways this week. And Cincinnati might be a hell of a sleeper for fantasy production.
Cincinnati is alive. We brought them back to life. Walk. Any parting advice?
Yeah, Tyreek Hill's out 4 to 6 weeks. Go get Mecole Hardman. And if Darren Waller's on your free agent wire, I see he's at 35% owned of Fantasy Pros. Definitely go get that guy. And I said Raheem Mostert earlier. My deep guy is Danny Amendola, who I mentioned before. He's going to be a PPR guy to go get. He's owning 5% of leagues. So just a quick hitter on some potential waiver wire moves you guys can make.
Do you know how many leagues I have Waller and Mark Andrews as my 2 tight ends? How happy I am.
Yeah, listen,
so happy.
Seek and destroy. I'm very unhappy because I had a bid higher than you, and because of Brissett, did I reduce it? So I should have Darren Waller in that league and not you, and I'm going to just have to regret it for now until eternity.
That's great. Great. That's a good way to close it. Like, once again, I want to thank everybody for taking a listen. Week 1's in the books, and so are we. But before we head out, I want to thank our partners over at the Full-Time Fantasy Network. Stuff just keeps growing over there. Make sure you check them out. You can follow us at the Fantasy 40 on Twitter. We are on all podcasts. What do you want to call that? Streaming services, we got
platforms, all podcast
platforms, streaming services, same deal. But Podbean, Stitcher, Google Play, Spotify, iTunes, all that stuff. So make sure you like, rate, and subscribe on one of those. So when you wake up in the morning, our show is just automatically downloaded. You just click play on your commute. But that's going to do it for myself, Andrew Burke, the one and only John DeBari, and the Eagles, Matt Walker. We're the Fantasy 40, and we're signing off.
Oh, we're going to the Super Bowl.
No, you're not. You can't beat us.
Because he was looking at winning like $2,000 or something, right?
Pretty penny, yeah.
Yeah, he should have taken $1,000 and bet on the Raiders. Then he's got $1,000 guaranteed either way.
Yeah.
Gambling 101.